At the dusk of the last ice age, the time of our species was thoroughly underway. Our limited range in Africa was a distant memory of the past. Everywhere from the coldest reaches of Europe to the southernmost tip of South America was inhabited. The former people of these lands, such as the Neanderthals, Erectus, Floresiensis, and Denisovans, were all long gone. However, in the remote mountains of southern China, a population of strange people lived. They were quite small and in many aspects resembled the hominins that lived in Africa 1.5 million years ago. They survived in China during the late Pleistocene, and some even survived until the Holocene. They are known as the Red Deer Cave people. Their late survival and strange features have caused much confusion within the field of paleoanthropology. Today we are going to be talking about what we currently know about them and their place in human evolution. In 1979, a petroleum geologist working in a cave in Longling County discovered a block of sediment which contained human remains, charcoal, burnt clay, and animal fossils. The man shipped the remains from Guangxi province to the neighboring Yunnan province. The initial extraction discovered the remains of a mandible and various bones of the body. A decade later, another cave known as Red Deer Cave was excavated in Yunnan province. The significance of these remains would not be found until two paleoanthropologists began looking through old collections of East Asian fossils in 2008. They found that both the red deer and longland remains feature a strange combination of archaic and modern traits. The discovery became even more significant when the remains were dated to between 17,800 and 11,500 years ago. This relatively recent date shocked researchers and inspired future research in both the Red Deer and Longland caves. Further remains only led to more confusion among scholars. The remains were so recent yet resemble hominins that lived around 1.5 million years ago in Africa. This led to some hypothesizing that they may have found an entirely new species. This discovery showed us how little we know about East Asian human evolution. Before we talk about the remains' possible relation to other species, let's first talk about the anatomy of these people. Their anatomy has never been seen before in modern or extinct humans. The Red Deer Cave people had a flat face, broad nose, long jaw with no chin, prominent brow, large molars, and a moderate-sized brain. Many of these features are quite archaic, though some resemble modern humans. Their body size was quite small at only around 50 kilograms or 110 pounds. Interestingly, the height of the first two molars and the thickness at that level is virtually identical to Upper Paleolithic Asian modern human remains, although the actual molars are like those of Neanderthals. The red deer femur is quite archaic and has features that have been lost in all anatomically modern humans. It strongly resembles ancient species like early Homo erectus or habilis. The femur by itself is not that peculiar, but in context with the cranial remains, these people seem to have had many archaic traits. Attempting to understand where these hominins fit into the larger picture of human evolution has been very difficult. There are a number of hypotheses surrounding the classification of these people, none of which are conclusively proven, but it is important to evaluate them all. The remains from Red Deer Cave appear to be relatively similar to archaic lineages such as Homo erectus and Homo habilis. The remains are most similar to a specific member of Homo erectus, KNMER 1481. A hominin that lived 1.89 million years ago in Africa. Some aspects of the remains have been described as being more similar to Australopithecines than to the genus Homo. Their affinity to these ancient species may either be a result of a late surviving lineage or an example of convergent evolution. We do know that populations of Homo erectus survived in East Asia until relatively recently. This population could be a result of a very late surviving population of Homo erectus or related to other remains such as Dolly man, Homo longi, or Denisovans. Another hypothesis is that these people were actually hybrids. It is possible this population is a result of hybridization between anatomically modern humans and an archaic species. Perhaps Denisovans, Homo erectus, or Homo longi. It is important to note that the remains at Long Lin Cave should not necessarily be considered contemporary with the remains at Red Deer Cave. Some researchers believe that the remains at Long Lin are more likely to be a hybrid than the remains at Red Deer Cave. The Red Deer Cave people could be the ancestral population, and the Long Lin people could be hybrids. Regardless, the hybrid hypothesis is interesting. It could explain many of their peculiar traits. It is possible that modern humans encountered these other hominins and mated with them relatively recently, as in the past 20,000 years. It is also possible that this hybridization happened much earlier on and the archaic traits were retained. It is very interesting to imagine if they were indeed hybrids, then perhaps the archaic traits were actually favored by natural selection in their environment. If so, this would be an incredible example of how traits seen as advanced or primitive are really just relative to their environment. The hybrid hypothesis is tantalizing. However, DNA evidence would be required to prove it in any discernible way. Attempts to isolate DNA from any of the fossils have so far not been successful. One hypothesis suggests that the Red Deer Cave people were an early migration of Homo sapiens that left Africa over 100,000 years ago. They may have migrated into China and then became isolated. The high mountains and deep valleys of their environment are ideal for separating species geographically. The Yunnan province still to this day has some of the greatest biodiversity in all of China. The Red Deer Cave people may represent a relic from the past, an archaic population that survived isolated from the changing world around them. However, the idea that they are just a derived population of modern humans has been considered unsatisfactory to many other researchers since the remains are so unique. If they are hybrids or an early migration, their isolation within the mountains and valleys of China certainly contributed to their late survival. One question many of you are probably wondering is, are these the remains of an entirely new human species? The answer is that we do not currently know. The remains are very different from any modern human remains. If they are hybrids, then their designation as a separate species would be problematic. If they are simply a very unique group of Homo sapiens, then our definition of Homo sapiens might change a little bit. DNA evidence would be very helpful in answering some of these questions, but for now all we can do is wonder. One thing that is extremely fascinating to me is just how recently these humans walked our planet. Some of their remains are younger than the Clovis culture of the Americas and right around the time of the Neolithic in some locations. Also, who knows how long these populations stayed around? Just because our youngest evidence for them is from 11,500 years ago does not mean this is when they went extinct. They could have survived well into the Holocene. Another interesting question is, how did these archaic populations contribute to modern East Asians? The late survival of this population is interesting to consider in the context of inheritance in modern East Asian populations. However, the cranial shape of LL1 was no closer to East Asian early modern humans than it was to fossil European modern humans. Therefore, the evidence does not support that East Asians inherited their morphology specifically from this group. Even though this population likely did not contribute much to modern Asian populations, their morphology does indicate that Pleistocene East Asia was very diverse. This diversity would decline with the Neolithic expansions throughout East Asia. The existence of the Red Deer Cave people is a testament to how much we still have to learn about evolution in East Asia. It is quickly becoming one of the most important places in understanding the larger picture of human evolution. Thanks for watching this episode of Northo2. If you're a fan of the channel, you may recall me talking about how I was going to go get footage out in Montana for an upcoming documentary I'm working on. Well, after 13 straight hours of driving and 7 days in Montana, I have come out with some good footage. I will show some of it here now, but I think I'm going to save most of it for the documentary. I'm really looking to improve this channel, and getting original footage is a step in the right direction. Sorry if I've not been posting as much lately, but I've been busy with school and of course getting that footage. I'm working on a few big projects right now, so expect some big videos coming soon. Well, thanks for watching. That's all I really have to say. Arrivederci.